right, let's jump into your
Okay.
book,
All right.
Russ. I'm so excited
Sure.
about your book. Like,
Sure.
obviously, we've known each other. How long have we known each other now? Like 13
Hmm,
years, something like that?
Yeah,
12?
10, 12, yeah, probably because
Something?
yeah, I did yoga teacher training in 2007 and it was shortly after that. So yeah, it would have been about 12 years now. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've known each other. We've known each other for a long time, and I am so excited that that you're sharing this book with everyone. And I mean, I don't know where we're gonna post this to everybody because
Yeah.
everyone's gonna listen to this. But so can you tell for people who are just meeting you here through the first time, just a
Sure.
little bit about why this book and like why now? Like what inspired you to write it?
Sure. Yeah. I was born a poor sharecropper's son. Uh, okay, let's get serious for a second. Um, my father was schizophrenic and bipolar. So I grew up in this chaotic household and I never really knew what I was going to get when I got home. You know, was he going to be there? Was he admitted to hospital? And he would be okay for months at a time, but there was always that waiting for the other shoe to drop thing. So as a result, I kind of developed this adversity to uncertainty, which we all call anxiety, because that's really what anxiety is. It's just like you can't handle uncertainty because of typically what uncertainty meant to you as a child. So what uncertainty meant to me as a child is I didn't know what was going to happen with my dad. So I developed this anxiety disorder. So, and I couldn't help him too. That was the other thing. So I couldn't help my dad. And so I decided, hey, I'm a rescuer. I might as well become a doctor. Right. So that's what I did. I became a medical doctor and rescued people until that stopped working and became a stand-up comedian until that stopped working. And then I just crashed. I ruptured my left Achilles tendon because I was an arrogant physician and I injected myself with cortisone and lidocaine because I had Achilles tendonitis. And I thought, mine won't rupture. I'm strong. I'm a yogi, man. So, 2 days later, spring, Achilles ruptures, February 8th, 2013. That was the last day I worked as a physician. And so I got into this real anxiety spiral. It was always difficult for me with anxiety before that, but as soon as I ruptured my Achilles and I was out of medicine, because medicine was kind of like my security blanket in a way. If I was a doctor, I was still okay. I could tell myself that I was okay. So I wasn't a doctor anymore, so I wasn't okay anymore. So I had to write. So I started writing about the experience, and then I went through ayahuasca. I went through LSD. I was suicidal for a time. Not to the point where I'm on the edge of the cliff going, do I or do I not? But if somebody would have said, I'm going to come behind you at some point tomorrow and put a bullet in the back of your head, and you're not going to know it, I'd be like, yeah, great, that'd be good. If you do, that'd be great. So I wrote this book under my, because I have a degree in neuroscience as well, and I've always been fascinated with how my brain creates all these stories and how I thought anxiety was in my mind, but it's actually not in my mind. It's this stored trauma that I call alarm that's in my body, and it's only reflected by my mind. So my mind, being a compulsive meaning making make sense machine, feels unconsciously this unresolved trauma that I have stored in my body, and it makes a story that's completely consistent with that uncomfortable feeling, which is usually you're going to die, things are going to go badly, and then that anxiety in my mind works on the alarm in my body, making it worse, and then the alarm gets worse, so that goes up to my mind and makes the anxiety get worse. So I get this cycle of alarm in my body, anxiety in my mind, and they both feed on each other. So the book is all about, a new paradigm for anxiety, and that it's really not the mind at all. The mind, of course, has things to do with it, but it's really this stored energy in the body. And if we can't get at that stored energy in the body, we'll always have anxiety. And what we were talking about before, I think we went on air, is we don't want to go back and revisit that pain, that stored pain in our body. So what we do is we go into our heads, we multitask, we start getting addictions, we start, getting ourselves so busy, so we're stuck in our heads all the time. So we won't have to go back down into that painful place in our bodies. So that's why we worry. That's the reason why we worry. And that's why the worry has to get so intense, because your natural tendency is to go back into that wounding and heal it, but you're not, your brain won't allow it. So that's what I mean, is like we can be our own worst enemies, and that's what's been said about anxiety for a long time. That was a very long rambling answer.
That's
Rachel.
wonderful. No, I mean, it's so interesting. Like I used to think in my okay, so when I first went to therapy, it was, I don't know, I think it was in my late 20s. I was like, oh my God, there's this whole world, my mind, my daddy issues, my whatever, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
And then like fast forward 15 years, 20 years later, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's great to understand those stories, but that's not where it's at. Like I've
Yeah.
known that for a while. It's not where it's at. It's actually through being embodied and transforming something on that level. And it just feels like, yeah, the solution's not in my head. That's not
Yeah.
actually where this thing shifts.
Yeah. And anxiety at its core, I think what happens when we're younger is if shit goes down in the hood, if our family life isn't that great, or there's
Yeah.
trauma there, we adopt it as our fault as children, because it can't be the parents' fault because they're omnipotent and they're looking after me. So if there's
Mm.
something wrong, it has to be me. And there's that old saying that says, if you abuse or abandon a child, they don't stop loving the parent, they stop loving themselves. Right.
Mm.
So I think we go through this split when we're younger because we start taking responsibility for problems that really don't belong to us. And then we start shaming and blaming ourselves for being what we made up in the first place. And it causes this split. So we get this mind, and then we go up into our heads and we stay there. So we get this mind body disconnect. And that's what I love when I started doing yoga, was like, things just don't seem as bad, because I think what happens is
Yeah.
yoga to join, to yoke, I think the mind and the body start getting reconnected again. Now, that can also cause, I remember when I first started doing yoga, it was kind of uncomfortable. It was great while I was doing it, but it started to become more uncomfortable because I started having to go back into these old places that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really want to mix with anymore. So then I started doing more yoga, like doing it every single day, going to as many classes as I possibly could. And it was almost like a distraction or an addiction because I felt
Yeah.
so much better, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then eventually that kind of piddled off, and then the anxiety started coming back again because I wasn't really resolving it. I was putting myself in the ballpark to resolve it, but I wasn't really doing the work that I needed to, which is basically this internal work of connecting with that younger part of yourself. And then
Mm.
once you connect with that younger part of yourself, then the trauma can metabolize. Then you can do something about it. But the analogy that I like to draw is about reading a book to ride a bike, right? So you can do all the intellectual work in the world. There's a book called The General Theory of Love that's written by 3 psychiatrists. And one of the quotes in the book is, it says that insight is the popcorn of psychotherapy, which is basically, if you know why, you know why you have daddy issues. I know why I have daddy,
Yeah.
why, but that doesn't transform it. So
Yeah.
transforming it is really going into it and feeling it. So if you read a book, 10 books on riding a bike, until you actually get on that bike, until you actually get in that feeling and stay on that bike and stay in that feeling and keep riding it, you never actually get better at riding a bike. So it's kind of like what we do now in the society is we see the bike, we know the bike is there, and we get on the bike for a second and we go, no, I need to read more. I need to do more therapy. I need to read, I need to find more
Yeah.
about how to ride this bike. When
Yeah.
really what we have to do is just get on the damn bike and ride it, even though it's going to be wobbly, it's going to be scary. But then, and we need help. We need friends. And I think yoga helps us with balance. I think it helps us stay on the bike.
Yeah.
But we also need to sit there with that feeling and process it. And I wrote an article for Elephant Journal, and it actually won #1 last week,
Ooh,
about cognitive bypassing and how we
I
can't
love
think our
that.
way. Yeah,
Yes.
we can't think. Yeah.
Yes.
So, so, so right now I'm winning. It's hard to get. Usually, it's hard to get words in on Rachel Scott, but I've done it, so I'm good now. I've
I'm
got to slow
excited.
down. No, you are really good. You were a great listener. I'm making stuff up.
No, this is fascinating. And the thing is that what I think yoga does well is I think yoga helps us to create, we over time doing yoga and showing up, we start to create a better container for holding the
Absolutely.
experience.
Yes.
But yoga is also very, okay. So for me, some of the most transformational work that I've experienced, yoga has served to help create a place for that, but yoga doesn't itself facilitate that, because honestly it's a lot messier. Like that emotional kind of staying with is so excruciating and so uncomfortable and sad and painful and enraging. Like to feel all those feelings, it's so hard. Like it's so easy to go off. It's so easy to just have a glass of wine. It's so easy to distract or work out or even something that's, you know, useful, or to get out of that place. That, and yoga, even though it helps us to create, I think, a framework for knowing we're not going to die. Like I think that's
Yeah.
what yoga does. It's like it
Yeah.
creates that kind of sense of, I can hold space for all of this stuff and I know that I'm still okay. So we don't become afraid that we're going to extinguish ourselves when we're having all of these feelings.
Yeah.
But like a yoga practice is like good training for that, but it's like also a yoga room isn't the place for that. It's like we need a different container that allows for expression and emotion, I think. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely. And I love what you said about the container, because that's really what it is. I mean, Bessel van der Kolk wrote this great book called The Body Keeps the Score.
I'm reading it right
Oh, it's
now.
great. It's
It's over
fantastic.
there.
And he's one of the few, it's a psychiatrist out of New England. And he's one of the few psychiatrists that's really absorbed this or taken on this mind body framework for healing mental trauma and stuff.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things where yoga does help you build this container. So if you imagine you've got a thimble full of water and you put a drop of blood in there, you're going to see some red, right? But if you drop that same thing of water in a liter container of water, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of red. So the red is your trauma, right? So if your trauma is in a thimble, you're going to feel it. It's going to be part of you. But if you create that bigger container, that drop of blood in the liter of water is really, you maybe see a faint tinge of it, but it's not going to overwhelm you. So that's what I love about that thing about creating the container. The yoga itself doesn't do it, but it does create this container of safety, whereas it's kind of okay to go back into your body, and let's be clear here. It's okay to have a glass of wine. We don't want to be, you and I.
Yeah, no, trust me.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, so I mean, where have you found in your own healing process? Because I do feel like this experience of like being in good company and finding people to support us in this particular journey is super important, because we kind of, you need that support to go to these places. So where have you found that community or that support, or to go there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is involving your social engagement system. There's something in our brains and our body called the social engagement system, and it involves the ventral vagus, which is polyvagal theory, and how we interact with other people. So it's eye contact, tone of voice, prosody of voice, body language. All this stuff makes us feel connected, and when we feel connected like that, we engage this social engagement system, and that automatically shuts off our fear response. So that's why this pandemic is so hard for people, because we don't have that interaction anymore. So I think it's really important that we filter this social engagement, and we pay attention to how socially engaged am I? When I'm with my friends, am I making eye contact? Am I laughing? Not that you have to put the pressure on yourself to do it, but that's what's really going to create this sort of internal sense of peace and safety, is this connection with other people. I've got a men's group here that, we're able to share our feelings. One of us cried about 3 years ago, and we beat him up, so he's out. But no, but it's great. There's tears, there's expressions. It's the ability of, really connecting on that socially engaged level, because it does help, again, make that container bigger. And when that container is bigger, it's not so much, and this is what Bessel van der Kolk says in the book, and you'll come up to it. It's not about getting people to discount their trauma or get rid of their trauma. It's getting them to sort of feel it and go, you know what, this is uncomfortable, but it's manageable. And I talk about that in the book, about it's not so much the alarm that we have in our system. It's the fact that we are so intolerant of it. And the fact that when we are intolerant of it, we go up into our heads to explain it. And that's when we really get into problems, because as soon as you go into your head to explain it, it just makes it worse. And I love the story about Odysseus and the sirens, about how he's traveling on this boat, and there's this siren island, and they're calling to him,
Siren
and they look beautiful,
Island.
and they're saying, yes, Siren Island. So and what sailors do is they run their boats aground, or they go ashore, and they wind up getting murdered by these sirens. It's a PG podcast. We can do that.
Doesn't have to be, darling. Doesn't have to be.
But the sirens are our thoughts, right? So we're going to get seduced. So when we feel this trauma, when we feel this pain, The sirens are our thoughts. They say, hey, we have the answer. We have the answer. And when all they do is have more of the problem. So really, it's about not cognitive bypassing. It's staying in your body and just staying present with your body and realizing this hurts, but it's not completely unbearable. It only becomes unbearable when we start adding thoughts to it. When we start adding thoughts to it and making it the worst thing ever, that's when it really starts to cycle on itself.
Yeah.
But if
You
you
know,
could,
yogis talk about this too, like
yeah,
separating the story from the actual feeling,
yeah,
right? And so it's kind of like creating a healthy distrust of your mind.
yeah,
One of my yoga teachers says, he's like, thoughts are tools, not truths. So it's
yeah.
kind of like, all right, okay. And they're so mean sometimes, Russ. They're so mean,
Oh, I
those
know.
thoughts. Okay, I have to ask you something because I get so excited. I have to write things down now because
Sure.
there's so many
Yeah,
things I want to
I
ask
do the
you.
same thing. That's what I'm doing right here.
So, okay, so you talk about this social network and the vagus nerve
Yeah,
and how that helps us, and it seems like that creates resilience in us for doing this kind of, for being with ourselves in presence. And so I loved what you said about like when you're going out with people, when you're connecting, to ask yourself like, am I really connecting? So,
yeah,
what do you think about? I see like my niece, my friends, everyone's on their phone. Like,
yeah.
what do you? Yeah, tell me a little bit how you think that's impacted all
Well,
this.
that's why suicides of 10 to 14-year-old girls are up 200% in the last 10 years
Oh,
because they don't
wow.
have that. We need see when our brains are maturing, we need to mature that social engagement system. So with our kids, we need to meet their eye. We need to make that face. The face is the only place in the human body where the muscles are attached directly to the skin.
And fat. I actually knew that.
Yes, because I know you've done a lot of anatomy. I
I
know.
can, yeah.
Yeah, you have. So it is one of those things where we express a lot through our faces. And,
Yeah.
when I was younger, we play road hockey. And if somebody scored a goal, we'd see their face and they're like, yay, I scored a goal. I won the championship or whatever. And then if somebody fell down and hurt themselves, we'd see their, the grimace of pain. And that matures our brain. We start, empathy is also going down over the course of years. So we need that person to person, face to face interaction to mature this social engagement system. And I talk about a little bit in the book. I don't go too much into the neuroscience of it, but I talk about it a little bit in the book about how we need to really engage this social engagement system, because we learn how to soothe ourselves originally from our mother through this social engagement system. She looks at us, she coos, she vocalizes to us, and we feel safe. And we do that with other people, our friends, our peers, our parents, our siblings, as we grow up. But now with the kids, they're not getting this face-to-face interaction anymore. It's face to screen, and they're not maturing that social engagement system. So the social engagement system helps us see other people's emotions, be able to read what's going on with them, have empathy, and be able to soothe them. And then as we soothe them, we learn how to, we take that same structure and we can turn it on
Yeah.
ourselves. So
Yeah.
if we're not maturing the social engagement system in our kids, they don't have the ability to soothe themselves. And then what happens is whenever they feel angst, they go back to the very same thing that's causing the problem in the first place. So they go back to.
Right.
So one last thing, what happens is, so they'll go off to university and the screens aren't working anymore. They've never got to this point where they're able to self-soothe. So they collapse. So there's so many university students now with severe anxiety because they've never learned to mature this social engagement system. And the good news is that we can start engaging this. We can start maturing the system at any age. So the brain's pretty plastic that way. But the problem is once you sort of, it's kind of like social anxiety disorder. If you don't have that mechanism in you to have feel comfortable with eye contact and facial expression and stuff, if you don't have that, it's very hard to mature it, because you're not going to, it's like getting on the bike again. If you're afraid to get on the bike, you're not going to mature it. So
Yeah.
this is what I mean about making a conscious choice to be more, facially connected with someone and body connected. And it just happens naturally. You don't have to do it, but it's not a bad intention to have to go into, an interaction with a lunch with a friend or whatever, saying, I'm really going to do my best to use my eye contact and it's kind of fun. Don't tell them, but it's kind of fun, because what happens
They're
is
like,
they will start telling you the most dark, deepest secrets, because that we want to get this stuff out. And that's what I'm getting at.
yeah.
We want to get to this trauma because we know we have to metabolize it, but there's so many distractions in our environment that it's just so easy to go to.
Yeah. Well, as you're saying that too, I was wondering about I mean, I've met people who are who have a hard time actually recognizing, identifying, and understanding their own feelings in themselves. So
Yeah,
it's I kind of feel like, wow, if we're not able to have eye contact, read facial expressions, identify what's going on, empathize with, with what's happening, then it may, perhaps that also makes it difficult for us to even develop a language or an understanding of what we're experiencing. It's like,
totally.
what is that? Like, I might get to, for years, and I'll just relate this to my own world, like for
Yeah,
years, because I never saw anger in my household. My parents never fought. Like, it was
right.
like, we have discussions.
Yes.
We discuss things,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I didn't see that. And so it actually was amazing because, and then I got into a marriage with someone who had no problem expressing his anger, a lot of
Right.
anger. And I think that's what was part of the attraction, was because I could recognize that in him. But it took me years to, people would be like, Rachel, you're angry. I'd be like, no, I'm not. I couldn't actually
Yeah.
even see it in myself. I didn't know I was angry. And so
Yeah.
like over time, it's taken me like, 25 years, 30 years to just go like, oh, I'm angry. I didn't, like, now I can see it more, but it's like I was blind to that. So we have, it's like cultivating our tolerance for our own inner experience, and creating space, and then doing it without judgment. Like, all the colors of the rainbow are
Yeah.
great. So can
Yeah.
I have that horrible feeling without attaching to, oh, I'm such an awful person, right? Which is where I went for years. Like, and we were chatting about this too. It's like, my feeling of not being good enough, of not being worthy, is what drove. I'm lucky it drove me to some good habits, which were
Of course.
socially productive, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll
Absolutely.
work hard, and then you get praised
Yeah.
for that, and you're like, I'm good. I'm a
Yeah.
doctor.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's actually just this big old illusion. It's a job. It's a sham.
Yeah.
It's, hiding from the stuff that actually makes me feel alive, which involves needing to just feel all those weird feelings. It's hard to
Yeah.
do.
Anything that brings us back into ourselves is uncomfortable if we've got trauma there. And most of us have trauma. I wanted to ask you, because anger wasn't expressed in my family either. In fact, I was, even exuberance was shut down because my mother grew up during
Mm.
the Blitz. She was in Glasgow and she got bombed every night. So she had to go into the shelter. So loud noises for her were like, stop that, stop that. So if I got angry, I was shut down immediately. So when I go into frustration. So I seem to have infinite patience for people. That's why I'm a doctor, I guess. But
Mm.
if I'm putting together an IKEA desk and things aren't going well, shit starts to fly. I start throwing my toys, man, because I start losing it. And and I've tracked it back to my mother when I was younger. I would get like, ah, and she'd be like, no, you can't, you're not allowed to express anger. So where's it going to go? It's going to go into my body and it's going to create some trauma and it's going to create some you know, old neurochemical, physiological patterns around anger. So I'm either going to explode, which if I don't do to people, but I'm a car screamer. I haven't done a car screamer for a while, and I highly recommend car screaming. I mean, if you don't do it, if you're in a position where you're like, oh my God, this is just the worst, go into the car, roll up the windows, start driving around, and just start screaming. And everybody in my clinic, even when I went back, because I would have some bad days in the clinic of just difficult patients, and I would come back and I leave and I go, I got to go up for about 10 minutes and I'll be right back. And then I come back and I go, okay, I'm kind of ready now. Kind of ready to see patients again. Because I blew up my voice. I was screaming so loud. It's like, okay, what brings you in to see me today? Okay, you got a sore throat. Let's have a look in there.
Oh my gosh. I'm such a fan. Okay, so I was an actor. And I think part of being an actor, part of that whole journey, they got my MFA, went totally into it,
Yeah,
was simply to try to reclaim my emotional space.
totally.
Now, I couldn't
Totally.
do it for myself, right? Like, I
Yeah,
was like, but I'll pretend to be this angry person, or I'll
yeah,
pretend to be this sad person, and then kind of like piggyback on that. And as I've gotten older, it's kind of like, okay, no, I actually want that experience for myself. I
yeah,
want, as
yeah,
I want to be a whole human. But
yeah,
there aren't that many venues, and people are raised, like, talking about being raised in a household where you have to be quiet, or you can't be angry, or you can't be sad, or all these feelings. And then we also culturally, get raised in these, in these bodies, like, don't move your hips,
yeah,
like, don't move that way, don't be too expressive, like,
yeah,
in kids being cool, like, whatever,
yeah,
this thing. And then it's like, how do you even unlock some of that stuff that's in there, and I come back to this idea of like, where do we find those spaces? Because like acting, dance, I love that kind of stuff. tribal dancing. You know, you have a men's group. I have a group of folks called Path of Love that I love, who really create a safe container for this kind of work. But it's like, it needs to become more socially acceptable, or socially
Yeah.
understood, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, a lot of it, I think, is just creating the intention around that you want to be more connected to yourself. I mean, really, we have all these affirmations and all this, I'm going to achieve $20 million, like Jim Carrey writes himself a check and that. But really, when you get up, it's really about making that intention. How can I be as connected as I possibly can today, knowing that that connection can be painful? Because we're also sold this bill of goods. Like, if we're totally connected to ourselves, we're completely in line, we're feeling peace, we're just take deep breaths and we just feel the pranayama move through our system, And again, it's a form of bypassing. Like, life hurts.
Yeah.
Like Jordan B. Peterson talks about life being suffering. There's a lot of, and the Buddha talks about that too. So he's in good.
Yeah, the original.
Yeah, the original Jordan B. Peterson, the Buddha. Talks about, so it is that, but just being able to really embrace the suffering, because the thing about anxiety is it's about running away from suffering. And what that does is it's like a lion, it'll start chasing you. So it's really embracing the stuff that hurts you and knowing, and then seeing when you embrace it like that, you know what, this isn't that, it hurts. Like, I'm not going to say you embrace it and all of a sudden you just transform it, but you have a chance at that point to be the victor in that, because so much of our lives and so much of this consumer driven society that we're in makes us victims. It makes, you're not attractive enough. You're not this enough. You're not that enough. You have to buy stuff. So that's the thing. We're always we're always on our heels. And it's a matter of knowing, okay, I'm going to be on my heels, especially if I start getting into how I really feel about stuff. And not that you have to do this 24 hours a day, but again, it's just making that intention. Our intentions are really the well, maybe not the best way, but a really good way of linking the unconscious to the conscious. So, or the conscious to the unconscious is probably the better way of putting it. Because then you sort of say, okay, I'm going to pay attention, because whatever you focus on, you get more of. It's part of the, one of the tenets of the brain. Whatever you focus on, you get more of. So if you focus on being more connected to yourself, be aware that you're probably going to feel more pain, but you're probably going to feel more joy too. Brene Brown, there's no joy without pain, right? And foreboding joy is what, creates suffering, and I think that's a lot of it, is like, we're afraid to feel joy because, if we feel joy, then we might be getting too happy. And if you're getting too happy, well, you can't have that.
Bad.
Yeah. You gotta buy stuff. Right.
So, And this is why I like, okay, just to bring it to yoga, because it's my world. This is why I really like Tantra Yoga as an evolution from Patanjali's, because the old yogis were like, just restrain the fluctuations of your mind, which includes your emotions. We're just going to let that go. You're going to be totally unattached to that and go sit in a cave in the Himalayas and yay. And I like Tantra because Tantra is like, no. Like, let yourself move more towards aliveness, and let your experiences, your emotional experiences, like, lean into that, and and all of it. And so without judgment, that all of it is divine and appropriate. And I find that so refreshing, because we're taught that we should only be successful, only be productive, only be happy, only be positive. This is why I hate affirmations on some level. I don't. Affirmations are great, as you say, but the phony, bypassy, I'm just going to pull myself up by my bootstraps and I'm just going to move ahead. Like, all of that stuff gets in the way of actually doing the healing that needs to be done, it feels like to me.
And I think that's true. And I think you can kind of do affirmation-y type stuff, but once you're grounded to yourself, because if you say something out loud and there's no emotional resonance to it, your brain and your body really don't pick it up. But if you can settle into yourself, and that's why I love yoga, and I've been getting out of yoga for the last little while. So thanks for this little book, because no, really, I was putting it off like every day for the last 25 days. Tomorrow I'll do yoga. Tomorrow I'll do yoga. Tomorrow I'll do, and I never do. So this was really good, because it reminded me of yoga. It reminded me about how good it feels, for one, and also that I don't have to go in there. One things I love about this is that you don't have to go in and do an hour practice.
Yeah.
Right? So again, it's getting back into your body and realizing, and you, I mean, I'm taught 1/millionth the amount that you have. But there's people who
I don't know if it's 1 million.
Maybe.
I'm
Okay.
just gonna hold up your book. It's on my Kindle, but I'll hold up your book too.
Oh, there. Oh no. Well, you can. Here's the actual
Yay! I know
copy
your
of it
cover
there.
looks better because you got the colors and stuff.
I wonder if this is the one
So
that's
good.
printed upside down. No, there's one they printed upside down. Yeah, there it is. So there's the book. There it is.
Yeah.
And then they printed it
Just
upside
to
down.
fuck with you.
You can
It's
see. I
just
think. Well, I think what I heard someone say is that it's a good luck print. Like they do it this way because it's supposed to give good luck because they print it upside down.
okay.
The very first one they print upside down, and it's kind of like, hey, good luck, buddy. Good chance. There's about 2 billion books out there. Maybe 5 people will read that one. But getting back to getting into your body, I think that's what we have, because that's where life is. Life is in our body. I have this thing that I write in the book. Is like, if we were just a brain, like if they just had a brain in cerebrospinal fluid and they fed it oxygen and glucose and nutrients, would you feel anything? Because I know that the brain itself has no pain fibers. I've been assisting on neurosurgeries where all we have to do is freeze the scalp and the skull, and then we can cut right into the brain, and they don't feel anything. They can say they feel some sensation, but they don't feel any pain. So it's really ironic that the brain has no pain fibers to it, and yet we associate pain with the brain. And that's a whole phantom limb thing that I could talk about forever. But again, it's just about how do you feel, and just can you be okay with how you feel without adding a story to it? And that's, if people get one thing out of our chat, it's like, when you feel badly, like, go into that and see if you can find it, because I get people to what I call find their alarm. So when you're upset about something, find it in your body, because so often we get sidetracked by our brains. And it's like, where is it that I feel that? Like when I think about my dad, it's right in my solar plexus. It's hot, it's sharp. It pushes up against my heart. That is my alarm. That's the alarm that when I feel abandoned, when I don't feel comfortable, when I don't feel safe. And it's really important for me to connect with that, because I do believe that alarm is my younger self. And then I just put my hand over that and I go, okay, it's all right. And I put my both hands over there and just feel my own connection to myself, because I really do feel that alarm that we feel, and usually it's somewhere between your chin and your pubic bone. If you really sort of, if you think of something that really troubles you, find it in your body, because that's probably your younger self. And if you had a child come up to you and hold his hands up, like pick me up, you would reflexively like pick them up and give them some attention. So why don't you do that for yourself? Why don't we do that for ourselves? So when we have this alarm that's in our system, why do we go off and, go into, buying stuff or addictions or, alcohol or whatever? It's really not that bad once you go into it. And sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need therapists. Sometimes we need like somatic, people that'll help us. But again, it's that social engagement system, being connected to other people, and just being really connected to yourself and finding that alarm in your system, because that's what you've got to connect to. That's what the problem is. It's not in your head. It's actually in your body. And that's a paradigm shift. And coming from me, if I was sort of an alternative health practitioner and I wrote this book, the medical doctors would go nuts and just say, oh, this, but I'm a medical doctor. I've got a degree in neuroscience. I've got, master's training in developmental psychology. So it's very hard. It's going to be very hard for them to kind of go, oh, well, this thing about your anxiety being in your body is, it's a bunch of new age. Well, no, it's not actually. So I think it's really to the point of trying to understand that your trauma is in your feeling. It's in your body. That's where life is. Like, that's what I said about the brain. The brain has no pain fibers itself. The pain is in your body, and you have to go into that pain and you have to feel it to heal it, kind of thing.
I have a question for you.
Okay. Go ahead.
So when I get troubled by something in my past, or I think back to things that I feel shitty about, and I feel it in my chest, and for me, it's like this collapse and it's this caving thing. Here's the thing. It's like, do you have suggestions? Because I know for me, like, okay, I can go into that, but my head creates all these nasty narratives for me. And it's like, I can be sweet to this, like, or try, but my brain says such mean stuff. So do you just kind of go like, fuck off mind, or like, whatever, and figure, like, what do you suggest?
Yeah, you can't stop your brain rage. And the thing is, what I was saying earlier is when that alarm comes up, your mind goes in like a fire alarm goes off in your head. So your mind starts going off with all these thoughts, and it can be really easy to get sucked back into that. But it's being able to see it so you don't have to be it. So if you can watch your mind and you know that they're the sirens and they're just trying to suck you into it, and you can kind of get curious. Like curiosity is a great thing. But usually what I recommend people do first is when they realize, hey, I'm in alarm, is to go completely into your body. If you have like an essential oil, like lavender or something like that, breathe in. The rhinencephalon, the part of your brain that detects smell, is the only part of the brain that isn't processed by this nucleus called the thalamus. The thalamus takes your touch, your sight, whatever, and it pre-processes it, and then it sends it out to the brain like, okay, this is the sensation. But smell is the only sensation that goes right into the emotional brain. So lavender, and it's not processed by the thalamus first. So lavender, which I think goes back to evolutionary times, because, if you were in a tribe and you smelled a predator, or you smelled a warring tribe, you needed to act right away. So that's why I think it has that immediate effect on your limbic system or your emotional system. So smelling an essential oil, I think, is really, because really what you want to do is pull yourself into sensation. So breath is great. Rubbing your fingertips together is great. Sometimes what I do is I cross my hands across the midline. Like, this is before COVID, of course, wash your hands, whatever you have to do. Do whatever you have to do. And then you cross your hands, and then you just rub your cheeks. Like you just stroke your cheeks. And it takes, there's so much real estate in your brain for your hands and your face. Like if there's so in the sensory motor, there's so much real estate in your brain associated with that. It's very hard to start thinking when you're doing this, because your brain is completely overloaded with sensation. And that's my point, is to completely go into sensation. Because what was happening before is 100% of your activity was going into making these horrible thoughts.
Horrible thoughts.
Even if you go and if you focus and you make your intention to go into sensation, touching that spot, that spot of alarm, putting your fingertips together, rubbing your face like this, smelling an essential oil, taking some deep breaths, focusing on your breath, breathing into the pain, all those things bring you into sensation, and they bring you into the present moment. And I think because I use this all the time when I talk to people, but I think it was I think during one of the classes where you said, you can't know when you're going to pee tomorrow. You're only in your sensation right now. This does sound like something. I think it was you, and I think it was at the right on the water there in Granville Island.
Semper Viva.
Yeah, Semper Viva. Yeah, because I think you said you can't, and that stuck with me. You said you can't sense something tomorrow. You can only sense something right now. Right. So yeah, you were the one that said that, because I've said that to so many people, and I wondered, where it was. So yeah, so it's getting into sensation. So what you're doing is you're pulling a lot of that thought energy, and you're pulling it into sensation energy. The thing about thought energy is it's almost always about the future, right? So you've got to mentally time travel.
Or the past.
Or the past. Yep.
Yeah.
But anxiety is typically about the future. I hope this doesn't happen. I hope that doesn't happen. And depression, usually stuff that drags you down and makes you shameful or guilty is about the past. But either way, sensation brings you into the present, because you have to feel in the present. And what that does is it gives you this sense of grounding, for one. And also it allows you the objectivity to now become curious about the thoughts. Because it's hard to be curious about the thoughts when you're in extremis. Like when you're alarmed, it's hard to see anything but the thoughts. So it's a practice thing. It's an intention thing. It's like, when I get upset, I'm going to go into my body. I'm going to really feel in my body, my breath. I'm smelling essential oil, whatever it is. And then that gives you this sort of sense of grounding. And then with that sense of grounding, you get some objectivity or curiosity on those thoughts. And you can kind of see, hey, you know what? I have a choice of believing these thoughts or not. Whereas before, when 100% of your mind is taking over, you're defenseless. And that's one of the other little catchphrases I have, is you can't beat thoughts on their own turf. You cannot beat thoughts on your own turf. You can't beat them, because thinking will just create more thinking. And thinking is what causes the problem. Thinking is what causes anxiety to go out of control. It's the feeling you can handle. It's uncomfortable, of course. But as soon as you start adding thoughts to it, it's like panic attacks. When people first start having panic attacks, they'll come in and they'll say, the other day I was on the bus and I was just, my hands were tingling and my chest felt really weird and stuff. And then they'll come in like the next time, they'll go, oh, and then I had this thought that I was having a heart attack or I was having a stroke. And that's when the panic starts. Because before it was just this weird sensation that they would have, but until they added the thoughts, I might be dying, I might have a, you know, a tumor, I might do this. That's when it goes runaway train. That's when it cycles out of control. So it's really about being able to, this is my other little catchphrase, being able to see your thoughts so you don't have to be your thoughts. You know, and George Carlin talks about that. George Carlin talks about calling thoughts brain droppings. Yeah. Yeah. Because little poops, you know, and if you believe them, your life gets kind of shitty. So, you know, and I think that's it. So really, you know, it's really about seeing your thoughts as not as you, you know, your thoughts, you know, and then we can get into this whole thing about free will, but that would take us days, but your thoughts really aren't yours. You know, there's no thought you could have that hasn't been had by millions and millions of people before you and will be had.
That's a comfort. It's such a comfort. Yeah. And also to know that like all my thoughts are just a product of conditioning, which I have not chosen. You know, like all of these trigger response patterns that were created going back to God knows when. So yeah, that's freedom. And the yogis agree. Like all of that conditioning and samskara, right? And to sort of see yourself out of it. Okay, so there's one thing we're probably going to have multiple talks because there's so much. Sure. But I do want to talk about drugs. I want to talk about drugs and I want to talk about drugs and anxiety. And because you've gone on some interesting adventures and I've had some interesting adventures lately. And so I want to hear about, by drugs, I mean like LSD, MDMA,
plant medicines. Yeah.
Ayahuasca. Yeah. Have you mushrooms? Is that in your basket of tricks?
So I've done psilocybin. I sound like a hey man, you know what? I've done psilocybin. I've been really fucked up, man. Psilocybin, ayahuasca, LSD, and MDMA. And MDMA, typically ecstasy, is not a psychedelic. I haven't done but you know, that's another one. But I think that's the future of psychotherapy, is somatic therapy for one, getting into the body, which is what I'm talking about, and then psychedelics as well. Yes. Because psychedelics are one of the things that take you out of your ego. You know, these ego protective things, because your thoughts are protective. As much as your thoughts are trying to, you know, making you feel terrible, they're really just trying to protect you.
They're like a very bad mom. They're like, I'm doing it for you, dear. Yeah. You know, yeah. Well, one of the reasons that I'm really curious about your experiences is because I've recently gone on a journey with psilocybin and I found it so helpful for my anxiety. Like I felt like it just totally did a restart of my nervous system. It was like, hey, darling, it was like, we're just going to like turn everything off and then turn it all back on. And it's like, it was like this crazy reset. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, there's something in your brain called the default mode network. And basically what that is what your brain does when you're not actively solving a problem. So it's kind of like the daydreaming state of the brain, right? Now, for those of us who have shame, blame, guilt, whatever in our past, that default mode network kicks in and then it starts to just automatically shame us or guilt us or make us feel bad about something. Now, there's also a feeling that the ego may actually be housed in this default mode network as well. So when you take a psychedelic, when we look at it on a functional MRI scan, it paralyzes the default mode network and it also paralyzes the ego at the same time. So we're thinking that maybe the ego is held in this default mode network, which is this protective state, you know, so we shame ourselves to protect ourselves. Like, don't do that again because, you know, you're going to get ostracized, or we guilt ourselves. So there's structures in the midline of the brain, anterior cingulate, posterior cingulate, that kind of thing that sort of, when we're not kind of thinking about something, just automatically will go into this old groove of how our old traumas. And that's what happens. And it comes up. So when we do psychedelics and it paralyzes that ego, then you kind of see what your life would be like without all this overprotection. Because really, that's what the ego is trying to do. In my book, I also talk about the ego dragon, you know, about how it sort of sits on top of the treasure of your innocence. And where is it here? I know it's in here. I know the picture's in here somewhere, but if I may not be able to get it right away, but I will find it. But basically, it's your ego dragon, and your ego dragon gets incarnated when you're a child. There it is, right there. When you're a child.
Here, lower it a little bit. There we go. I like it. Yeah.
So your ego. So when you're a child and you experience incredible uncertainty, you can create this mythical monster, this ego dragon that's going to protect you. So if you're giving a little talk to your class and you forget your words and everyone laughs at you, the ego dragon kicks in there and goes, you're never giving a talk to anybody at any time, any place, anywhere, ever. So it's trying to protect you from not going into that same place, but it also prevents you from growth. So it's like your innocence gets kind of put in this treasure chest and it gets sealed away. So it gets protected from the outside world, but it doesn't actually, you don't actually get to express your gifts while your innocence is locked, protected in that chest. So I talk about, like, there's 9 different ego dragon strategies that protect us, that overprotect us, that, you know, cause a whole lot of anxiety and cause a whole lot of emotional pain when once we understand what they're doing. One of them, for example, is inability to receive. So typically with a lot of us, when we grow up in these uncertain environments, is we become givers, rescuers, that kind of thing. And we're good at reading other people. We're good at giving them what they want, but we're very bad about giving ourselves what we want. So I say, are you that when I talk to people, I say, are you the first person to stop when there's a hug? Like, who's the first person to let go? You know, and they say, yeah, it's almost always me. Yeah. So in a way, that's inability to receive. Or how do you receive a compliment? I used to do this with some of my patients sometimes that I was kind of, you know, concerned about. I go, and I would give them a genuine compliment. I wasn't just rusing them, but I would say, hey, that's a really nice coat. And if they said, oh, you know, I got it on sale, a friend of mine gave it to me, I really don't like it. You know, that's, if they can't take a compliment from you, they probably can't take positive stuff from themselves either. Right. So it was a way of me kind of finding out how they spoke to themselves. Whereas if I said, hey, that's a great looking coat, and they said, oh, thanks, you know, I really like it too, I have an idea that they're able to kind of accept good things coming towards them. So there's always these strategies that this ego dragon creates that makes our lives miserable, but it's really only trying to protect us. And the ego dragon is not this, you know, this omnipotent figure. It's basically, it's a huge 6-year-old with a lot of power, and it acts like a 6-year-old.
Right.
So if you look at those thoughts in your voice, like, you know, that's a 6-year-old trying to tell you how to stay safe. And if you're alarmed and you don't have your rational brain, that's gonna sound okay to you. That's gonna sound reasonable. You know, everything they say is gonna sound, well, that makes sense to me. But
Right.
it's realizing, you know, grounding yourself in the present moment in sensation, and then being able to look at those thoughts going, yeah, you know what? Like, have you ever had the same exact thought 6 hours later and felt totally different about the same thought?
Sure. Oh yeah.
So it's basically the state of your body. Earlier, when you're in alarm, I used to have this when I had stand-up gigs. I used to do stand-up for 10 years in Vancouver.
I saw you.
Yeah. And I would wake up.
I remember many of your jokes.
And
I do. Okay.
And I would wake up petrified, you know, at 6:30 or 7 in the morning. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to perform tonight. There's no way. I can't do that. And then by 3 o'clock, I'm like, I'm looking forward to the show tonight. And then by 7 or 7:30, I'm like, I'm on fire. So it just shows you that the physiological state of your body, the alarm state of your body, completely dictates what your mind's gonna think. Right. So if you're really upset, you can kind of go, this is my body upset. This isn't really my mind that's upset. It's my body that's upset. And that's what I love about pranayama and yoga and that kind of thing, because it does teach you to build this container in your body so that you do have this safe place to go.
Yeah.
And
well, this is why life looks different after Shavasana.
Absolutely.
It's like you see a different range of options. And this is what I think growth is about. Like, we get so hard. Okay, this is going to go off sides a little bit, but we get so angry at ourselves because of choices we've made. Oh, I could have done better. I should have done la, 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 la. Yeah. And everyone says, oh, you made the best choice you could. But I think this is really the truth, is like, we make the best choice that we can at the time with the environment that we have at our disposal, because our body is going to dictate like whether or not we see lots of options or whether or not we are only seeing like the fight or flight options that are right in front of us or that we've been habituated to. So by doing this kind of work, it's like we can really change our body state. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, actually that is possible for me to do. I could leave my job, or I could, you know, take on this extra responsibility with, you know, and like the world changes. And so I think I want people out there listening to be compassionate. It's like, and I'm talking to myself too, but it's like, be compassionate. You actually did make the best choice that you could. But now that we know that we can change our body states, maybe that'll help us see more options even that we could use, which would, you know.
That's
help us to
that's
evolve.
exactly it. And that's basically exactly it. I think what we're doing in society now is we're thinking that we can go to therapy, we can talk our way out, we can understand it. And if we understand it, we can make it better. To some extent,
Yeah.
I think that's true. I think we do need this coherent narrative of our lives to know what happened to us. But the thing is, that's not going to fix us. What's going to fix us, and I tell this from experience, and you talked about this earlier on, LSD, and I want to touch on this really quickly, is LSD showed me that the alarm was in what I called my anxiety at the time, was in my body. It showed me quite clearly that this purple crystalline structure that pushed up on my heart, that is my old younger self asking for my own attention. That's my alarm. That's what needs to be healed. That's what I need to pay attention to. The thoughts are just the byproduct. It's like the little analogy that I draw is, say you have a hole in your boat. Now, there's water that's coming into your boat. Now, you can bail water out, which is kind of like talk therapy, which is kind of like psychotherapy. You can do it, and you
Yeah.
can do a little bit better. But unless you go under there and you patch that hole in the boat, which is the alarm, unless you patch that hole in the hull of the boat, you're always just going to be bailing water. You're always just going to be trying to figure this out with your mind. So this is why this paradigm is going to change the way that I think anxiety is certainly looked at by psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, that kind of thing. Is it something in your body? And just give you another way of treating it, because we're not, as Dr. Phil would say, how's that working for you? We're not really doing that well, especially, anxiety treatments do well in the first 12 weeks. And then statistically, 90% of people at a year are back in the same place, if not worse, because they tell themselves, I went through 12 weeks of therapy and I'm worse. So it really is about changing the paradigm of how we think about mental illness or stress or anxiety as this place that's stored in our body that's reminding us of an earlier time where we felt helpless, because it's really not us. And the other thing I love to say is that any overreaction is an age regression. So if someone freaks out at you,
That's
they are going back to the place where and that's why couples, when they have these huge fights, it's like two 6-year-olds. And there's that thing at Burning Man, there was that kind of structure they built at Burning Man where the two children were kind of trying to connect with each other, like holding each hand, and the two adults were kind of back to back to each other. It's a really poignant picture, and I think it looks like it's made out of wicker or something like that too. But the boy and the girl are kind of holding their hands out to each other, and the man and the woman are standing to their each other's backs. So that's the really poignant thing, is that it's all about connection. It's really about connecting to yourself. And I'm not past anxiety. I still deal with it, but it's a million times better. And I know where it's coming from. I understand it. I know where it's coming from. I know what my ego dragon is trying to do. I can make friends with my ego dragon now and just say, yeah, I know you're here to help me. I know you're trying to help. I know it's good, but I'm just going to get into my body right now. And then once I settle into myself, then we can talk. And it's amazing how much different things look like once you've grounded yourself. Like right out
Russ.
post-Vipassana, same thing.
Yeah. Oh, this is so valuable. I'm so excited that you have put your personal experience and all of your academic smarty pants experience and medical experience into this resource. So tell people, where can we find your book? Where can we go get it?
Anxiety RX. You can Google it. It's on Amazon, actually. So Amazon's probably the best place to get it. Amazon.com, Amazon.ca. You can in the line, type in Anxiety RX or Russell Kennedy, 2 S's, 2 L's, 2 N's. And
you've said that a few times.
Amazing people. It's like Kennedy, like the president. Yeah. Is it 1 N? No, it's 2 N's. 2 N's.
So just a final thought. Like, okay, so say there's someone out there who happens to be listening to this and who's dealing with anxiety. If there was one simple starting place, one simple piece of advice you might give to them. You've given so many nuggets, but just like one thing for them to start on, what might it be?
Get out of your head and into your body. When you're feeling it, you're not going to find the solution. You're looking for peanut butter in a hardware store when you're trying to think your way out of anxiety. You're not going to find it there. You're going to find it but your thoughts are going to try and seduce you. It's like that emu thing that, they're going to peck at you. And it's just being able to use some essential oils, use sensation, focus on your breath, and really, really make that intention that you're going to go into sensation. And then once you're into sensation, a lot of the energy that was used to fuel all those repetitive thoughts is now at least half, because now you're in a sensation. So get out of your head. And the way to do that is to get into your body, get into the sensation, and get into the present moment with sensation. That is like, out of anything that I could say to anybody with anxiety, that is what you have to do. There's a bunch of different ways I show you how to do that in the book, but really it's get out of your head, because your heads are the sirens. They're just going to make you worse. Even though they tell you they're going to help you, they are not. And it's
liars.
And I have learned that the hard way over decades. It's getting into your body, finding that alarm, and just soothing that place in you, that alarm, because that's really your younger self, and that's the part of you that's hurting. That's the part that needs your attention.
That's really beautiful. That's, and as you were saying that, I had this thought, wasn't it Einstein that said you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it?
At the same level it was created, yeah.
Is that what it is? So you're kind of like the anxiety Einstein. That's kind of what you are.
Yeah. But you know what? But in a way, I kind of disagree with that, because the way that we're doing is, he said you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that it was created. But really, you can solve a problem at the same level of feeling that it was created, because you have to get in that same room with that feeling, and thinking doesn't do it. You really have to feel it to find that old younger self, and to be able to talk to them and communicate with them and to soothe them. So in a way, it's kind of ironic, because it is the same level. And the thing is that we're so locked out of that level that we can't change it. So I would kind of change that a little bit, as far as, feeling problem. For thinking problems, Al had it right, but for feeling problems, you really have to get into the same plane with it. So it has to be solved at the same level it was created.
Yes. I love that. You're so clever. You're so clever and smart.
I try.
All right. I'm not going to lift my knees up, because then you'll see that I'm wearing very fluffy pajama pants. We're going to keep that down there. Anyways, it was so awesome.
These are my cozy camouflage. They're polar fleece. I think I've worn them 6 days in a row. Thank you, pandemic.
Yeah. Welcome. Anyways, thank you so much.
Thanks, Paige.
It's so much fun.